Everyone, welcome to a very special edition of Tunnel Vision. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, along with Keely, Eure, and we have a very special guest. We didn't have any basketball highlights in that intro. We have new USC women's basketball coach, Lindsay Gottlieb. You can follow her on Twitter at Coach Lindsay G. Coach, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Who doesn't get excited by football highlights? That was cool, but we'll get some basketball ones in there when we get going.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to have been a crazy, month for you or so. It's been about a month since you were announced as USC's next women's head basketball coach. What has it been like since that introductory press conference and kind of making your way here to LA?
So it has been a crazy whirlwind. As I've said kind of a couple times before, it wasn't something that I was expecting. It wasn't something that I was looking for. I was kind of knee deep in the NBA season, and then this incredible opportunity sort of presented itself. And when I first got the job, it was actually pretty cool that I think both sides, the Cavs and USC, wanted me to finish out the season, which I really appreciated because you don't often get closure in sports. The jobs are so quick and the transitions are very, instantaneous. So I was really grateful for that. And then sort of since then, I've been all in on USC women's hoops. I've been a little bit back and forth, but our players will be on campus starting next week or so. We'll start summer access. And so, then I'll be there full time. And I can't wait to just jump in with the players. Obviously, a lot of it's been remote and communicating with them via Zooms and text messages. So there's nothing like being around the team. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Speaking of being around the team, it seemed like everyone from the Cavs organization had so many nice things to say about you. I want to put this picture up with everyone wearing USC gear in this photo, including Kevin Love. I don't know how you pulled that off, but that must have been a special moment for you.
It was unbelievable. I mean, they really were tremendous in every way in my entire time that I was there, but particularly when this job came about, they're my guys and they were very supportive. And so when I came back from the press conference, the fine people in the equipment room gave me a bag of shirts, and our guys were quick to want to put them on. Even K Love was a great sport about it. So I think we're going to have a lot of Trojan fans in the group. They all told me they're going to hit me up when they want to work out in LA over the summer. So it just, you don't often get to leave one job and start something new with such a good feeling around it. So I'm really grateful for the opportunities in the NBA and the relationships that will continue. Even the guys that were on the team the first year and not last year, Tristan Thompson was texting me last night about, where am I going to live in LA and different things. Like they've all been incredibly supportive. And so I'm hoping to continue those relationships, even when I'm coaching the women on our team.
Yeah, in that sense, we were wondering, what's it like for you once you were announced as the new head coach? There was just an outpouring of praise for what you did in the NBA. What was that like for you to receive that much praise?
Obviously, it was incredibly humbling. You just approach any job with the idea that you want to go and add value and impact people. And that was no different for me that when I was coaching women's college basketball than when I was in the NBA. But to sort of, move on and have people be so supportive is really special and something that I appreciate. And I do think going forward, with all this, the more amounts of women coaching men's basketball and vice versa, I think what I hope to do is just grow the synergy. It doesn't have to be you're a women's basketball person or you're a men's basketball person or you're a pro or a college. I think the idea is that, if you're a coach, you're a coach. If you're a hooper, you're a hooper. And let's, kind of continue to grow the bonds between the games. And that, I think, for me is the lasting thing that, it blows me away that, however many years into this thing of my career, that now the network is what it is. And I don't mean it was kind of cool to see who was texting me when this happened, everything from the high school coach, that I went and watched their practice when I was the head coach at Santa Barbara, to NBA GMs. Like, it's really neat. That's just the world now. And no one is any more important than anyone else. It's just this idea that I consider my basketball family, my basketball neighborhoods, so to speak, to be a lot of different people at a lot of different levels. And I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned in your introductory press conference how important relationships are both on and off the court. How have you developed that skill over the course of your tenure?
So I don't know if that's so much of a skill as just an innate characteristic. I think, Keely, like, to me, coaching is about the human impact on people. Obviously, we're trying to get the team to accomplish great things as a unit. But if you're transactional in nature, or you don't care about the athletes that you coach, I'm not really sure how that could possibly be fulfilling, because the ball rims out sometimes, or you don't always kind of achieve exactly what you want to, but the bonds you have with people, that's under your control. And so for me, that's the part that has come naturally. That's the reason I do it. I'm an X's and O nerd, and I love the games and I love the competition. But what really fulfills me is the way that I'm able as a coach to have an impact on people and hopefully get them where they want to be individually in life, and also as the team. So I think that relationship piece, I don't think I could do it any other way.
Mm-hmm. You took 7 of your Cal teams to the NCAA tournament. How much do you think that culture, that being personal with your players, fuels that winning culture, if you will?
I think it's the two are inherently linked, no question about it. I don't know that there are teams that perform it to the to their peak without having the relational piece. And I don't relational piece doesn't always have to be everybody is super tight in the same way. I'm a little bit more personal, where I like the players to come in my office and get to know them really well. But there's no question you have to be in lockstep when it comes to what you're trying to accomplish. So I like having the relationship where players can tell me in the game what they see, or that you've built the relationships authentically enough that when it's the middle of February and you need to tell them they got to box out better or run faster, that's what they hear, because the relationship is so tight. There's no question. I think that impacts winning, and that's a lot of I think what we have to do at USC. There's talent in the room. There has been talent. We have obviously haven't achieved as much as what everyone's goals are. So I think it's looking at a group of talented women and saying what impacts winning here. We're going to start with relationships. We're going to start with culture, what we're about. We're going to start with our work ethic and how we approach every single day, and then you talk about tactics and and the things that happen on the court. But there's a lot of foundational work that can be done in terms of how we go about seeing each other every day and how we go about our work every day. And so I'm really looking forward to that, because that's the piece I think that really you can't underestimate in terms of its impact on winning.
A couple of years ago, you made history. You're the first women's head basketball coach to make the jump in college, to make the jump to the NBA. To lure you away from that, obviously, there's got to be some appeal with USC. There's tradition, but I know Mike Bohn has really promised a lot of resources, and we've seen that throughout the different sports in the athletic department. What was that conversation like when he was talking about the kind of dedication and the resources they would put towards a successful women's basketball program?
So it wasn't a conversation, it was a lot of conversations. And I hope that they're conversations that are continuing, because that's the type of, of coach that I am. I'm always going to think outside the box. I'm always going to say, hey, have you thought about this? And it's not always financial, right? A lot of the things that we're going to want to do, some things cost money, but some things it's just, hey, are you with me on this? Can we try something different? And so, taking you through the process, I was sitting in our locker room. So, obviously we have the practice facility in Cleveland, and then there's Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse where we have the games. And I was in the coach's locker room prior to playing the Chicago Bulls, which was actually my scout. And I was sitting around with our coaching staff, me and a bunch of guys, like it always was for 2 years. And I looked at my phone for a minute and I saw that, the Coach Track had retired. But what struck me was in the release about, Coach Track retiring, it also, was a quote from Mike Bohn saying, we're ready to really commit to women's basketball. And I was like, that's not normally done, right? Where an AD comes out and says it's time, for women's basketball to be a little bit different, at USC. And so that struck me. And then when he reached out to me, that's exactly what the conversations were about. Look, there are things about USC that just are inherently unbelievable. The degree, right? Female athletes really care about the degree, as do male athletes, but the location. LA is the mecca right now of basketball and all the opportunities that affords being in the media market. And the Pac-12 conference is terrific, and the campus is unbelievable, and the history. I mean, there's a Mount Rushmore of women's basketball players who won national championships, et cetera. And so all that stuff was there, and everyone knows, USC has so much and kind of a little bit of a sleeping giant. So the X factor was how much does the administration really care about it, and how much do they value this sport? And from the first conversation, Mike Bone was very transparent about, hey, we want this to be a championship program, and actually we think you're the person to help get us there, and sort of said it's your blank canvas. You tell us what an elite women's program looks like. And that was really appealing to me, because the creativity in me and hey, maybe there's a way to do this that hasn't been done yet in terms of the modern NCAA and what it's going to look like. And those were the things that were appealing to me in terms of coming back to college, just stretching me a little bit, using what I've learned in the NBA that I think will make me a better head coach than I've ever been. And this situation where you've got this gold mine of a place, but where the administration is saying, hey, we want to support you in doing this at a really elite level.
Mm-hmm. We'll get into the future of the program in a second. I'm just curious. We've heard that you were a tough sell, and you said it yourself, you didn't expect to lead the NBA as soon as you did. Do you recall a specific moment where you're like, okay, I'm making the jump. This is the right move for me?
So, it wasn't a tough sell in terms of, I knew everything that USC, like I said, had to offer. It's one of the few schools, I think, left where you say, oh my goodness, right? Like, think about the potential. So I was sold on that from the beginning, or else I wouldn't have taken the first phone call.
Sure.
I got calls many times in the 2 years, even, one from a men's college program, just different opportunities. And if I wasn't really going to consider it, then I wasn't going to take the phone call. So I was in on the possibility from the beginning. I think for me, it was, I wasn't done in the NBA, and I had to wrap my mind around saying, okay, Lindsay, like it can be where you're not fully done with an experience, and yet something else comes along that is just so right. So I think it was wrapping my mind around that, and also, really getting to know the people in the administration that are going to be my partners in this, because that's important to me. But I think there was a moment, there were a lot of different moments, but one in particular, where I just was actually sitting in this office, with my husband, Patrick, and he's always said, even going to the NBA, what do you want your legacy to be? And he really said, think about, sort of not what you're leaving behind, but what you're going to have the ability to do. And I think that was a moment for me. And then there was also a coach that I trust that's in my circle. And I've coached his daughter and said, Lindsay, the NBA is amazing. The WNBA is great, elite athletes, but the impact you had on my daughter, if there's a chance for you to have that impact on other people's daughters, like that's what I think, maybe you were really called to do. And so that was influential to me. So I think just the mix of everything, Keely, was just wrapping my mind around leaving something I love to go after something that's maybe really transcendent and an opportunity that's not going to come around again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to put together a crack staff. You bring over Wendell Farrell, who is with you at Cal, and then Danielle Grant from Utah, I believe. If you talk about those two hires.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And obviously we have another assistant hire coming out. We have a director of player development and director of video and analytics. So again, they've allowed me to craft the staff that's going to, more than anything, make for the best possible experience for our student athletes. But Dale and Danny were kind of the immediate people who were on board. So Dale I worked with, for 3 seasons at Cal. We pretty much talked every day when I was in the NBA just about basketball, whether, I can talk to Dale, whether it's about NBA or women's college basketball or a high school game. He's just a quality human being. He's got a servant's heart. He's unbelievable for the women, in the program, just as a mentor. And then he's just a great basketball mind and someone that has been by my side before, so kind of knows how I operate. And then Danny, I knew more from the road when you sort of observe other people. And as a head coach, you're always kind of watching how people work and how they operate. And then when I, started to put some feelers out to people, and you ask, either club coaches or other coaches, hey, who are the best out there? Literally, there was not one person who didn't have Danny Grant on their list. And so that kind of coalesced with what I'd already thought. And so she's done an amazing job at Utah. She's originally from California. I think coming back home and, recruiting and mentoring in a place that is her spot is going to be incredible for all of us. So I'm really looking forward to working with them, on a daily basis. Obviously, we already have been for a couple weeks here, and adding the others to the staff. And like I said, you craft this group that we have to have great chemistry amongst ourselves in order to preach to our team that chemistry is that important. And that's always, been my philosophy with the coaching staffs that I've been able to construct. And I think this one's going to be no different. And everyone's excited about the opportunity to make, this Trojan program like really what it can be.
In that sense, as you mentioned, USC's women's basketball team seems like it could be a sleeping giant. What potential do you see in this program?
Limitless. I mean, really limitless. When you look at sort of the landscape of women's basketball, it's never been more popular. It's never been more exciting. I think, the West Coast now is sort of, the place to be. But you've got a school, here, like I said, it has this unbelievable history. I mean, we're talking, there are not very many schools have won multiple national championships. And it was a long time ago. But the things that kind of made that, that program at the time so hyped, like that hasn't gone anywhere. It's just a matter of re-energizing it. And for me, there's 2 private schools in the Pac-12. USC sort of marries this idea of high academics and really, really caring about athletics, like a student body that gets excited for football weekends and for basketball and for athletics in general, all the Olympic sports, and to be able to kind of go in California, in the West Coast, and really all over the country with USC on your chest and say, hey, do you want to be a part of this? We're going to, I think, be able to formulate, something pretty special. And that's really what ultimately you want as a coach, right? Whether it's the NBA or college, you want to build something special that people enjoy being part of. And I think there's no reason why at USC we can't, do something that's very successful for a very long time.
We cover recruiting a lot on the football side, but there's always this transition you make from high school to college to the pros. You've made this is good, like a double transition. You're going from coaching pro athletes to college athletes again, but it's also men versus women. Maybe if you want to talk about some of the differences on both sides of that, making that transition both ways.
Yeah, well, I think for sure what I can say is that what elite athletes want in a coach sort of transcends gender. So I found it transcends the gender of the coach and the elite athlete. So, what I found that the guys in the NBA really cared about was, number one, do you know your stuff? Like, you can't BS these guys, and you can't BS, high-level women basketball players either. They want to know that you know what you're talking about and that you can make them better. But then simultaneously, they really want to know, do you care about me as a human being? It's very important to them that they have identities beyond the court. And that's exactly what I experienced in college. So to me, those are the things that remain the same, right? They want to be coached. Like, can I really coach them? Can I provide things that's going to make them better? And then do I care about them? So those things are similar. I think there are some differences, right? Like, there were days where things can get chippy in an NBA practice and the guys go after it and, talk a little trash, and you don't have to have 3 team meetings about it after, right? Sometimes if it gets feisty, then, you're making sure everyone's good after. So there are some kind of differences there, but, and then I think the main differences are just in the logistics of the NBA versus college, right? So, the NBA in a typical season, you have 82 games. And once you get in that, you can't practice that much, right? Because it's game after game and then a day. And even then that practice will be shorter and you're doing a lot of individual work. Whereas in college, you have, 35 regular or 35 games in a season, give or take. And then you have 100 practices. So I think where the synergy between the two for me is going to be really good is that, I think there's a mentality in college sometimes of more, I have to use every second. And I think a little bit of an NBA mentality saying what's actually good for their body right now, what's good for their mind. Let's be very intentional about how we use our time. I think I'll bring some of that. And also the emphasis on player development, where you can't practice all the time, that putting together really comprehensive individual development plans can take the place sometimes of pounding each other 5-on-5. That said, I'm also looking forward to going back to college where you have 2 games in a week. And game planning really matters, and prepping really matters, because you've got 3 practices, not just a shoot around to say how are you guarding Dame Lillard tonight, right? Which
yeah,
no one did that last night. Nobody did it last night.
Right. But you get a chance, and this is where I think maybe we can really improve. Like, I believe in women's college basketball that if you really get your players to understand what you're trying to take away from the other team and buy into that and do it, it's like giving them the answers before they take the exam, and you've got 3 days to practice on it. Well, then you can really win games that you might not otherwise have won if you're just rolling out the balls. So there's that tactical part that I'm is really fun in college, but there's no question that I'm going to take some of the things I've learned in the NBA about spacing and pace and how to manage, very player centric kind of thought processes around how you manage, people getting them ready to play. I think I'm going to blend some of the two together.
I know you said in your presser that you were still watching college basketball while you were in the NBA. Do you feel like just in the 2 years you were gone that the women's game has evolved?
I think so it's funny. I was obviously a fan of the NCAA tournament, and the Pac-12 did so well. You had two teams in the national championship game, and a lot more in the Sweet 16. But I'm like, it's been this way, right? Like there's no surprise to me that Eure McDonald was good. I saw it up close, so I think the coverage of it has evolved. I think the excitement around it has evolved, which is great. And I think the game is continuing to evolve. But it was fun as a fan to just kind of step back and not sort of have a stake in it and just be able to appreciate it. But I think the game has been moving in that direction for quite some time. And I think just in the past 2 years, maybe just more eyes are on it.
I know your phones go. We talked beforehand. You got recruiting and stuff going on. That's one of the other differences, right?
Sorry,
NBA.
You hear it? I'm silence it.
No, you're fine. It's just you got recruits and stuff there.
Recruiting never stops.
But one of the things that's going to change from when you were at Cal is the whole name, image, and likeness thing. I know USC and the Pac-12 is embracing that. How do you see that impacting recruiting in women's basketball?
So I'll tell you this: again, I kept my circle small when I was sort of thinking about the notion of this job, but some people were like, oh, why would you want to come back to college basketball? The players have the power and there's a transfer portal and name, image, likeness is coming. And I was like, that's actually an incentive for me to come back. And I honestly believe that. For 10 years, I've been saying it should be about the players and how can we help them and what can we do for them, not just what can they do for us. Look, I have the career that I have because of, and I'm going to not be able to say everyone, but Lasia Clarendon and Brittany Boyd and Rashawn DeGray and Talia Caldwell and all, and my players at Santa Barbara, because, I coached them, but they went out there and played and got results. And all of a sudden, I get job opportunities or I get contract extensions or what have you. So I've always had the mentality that we are only who we are as coaches and we only have the contracts and whatever because of a partnership or, embracing, the young people that we coach. So I've always believed they should, be able to do what they want and certainly profit off of their name, image, and likeness if they, are in that realm to be able to do so. I think we need to be really smart about it. I think we want to make sure that our student athletes don't get taken advantage of in any way. I think we need to teach them how to, brand themselves and if it becomes profitable, great. And if it doesn't, it's still a good brand so you can get a job. I think we need to educate them that the value of the degree, I think USC is the most expensive degree in the country right now. Don't quote me on that, but that's what someone told me. So there is value in that degree, even if you never make a dime. So I think it's educating them on everything they can get out of the experience. Now, at the same time, we want to make sure that we are creating an experience in our women's basketball program that serves the student athletes. Does that mean no one's ever going to, of course they should have the power to leave if they want to be elsewhere, and then, if there's another player that wants to come in from the transfer portal, I'm sure we will, take advantage of that. And that's not transactional. That's life right now. People have to figure out what serves them and then do it. But what I want to make sure is that, it's the things that we're in control of, how people are treated, how they're coached, the level of kind of investment they're getting from the coaching staff is really high. And then the benefits that they reap will be about how well we do as a team and how well we mentor them in terms of their ability to turn this experience into lifelong benefits. And that might be playing in the pros, it might be name, image, likeness, it might be going to law school, it might be being a teacher, it might be whatever. But it's our responsibility to help players get where they want to go. So name, image, and likeness to me is a great step for the next generation of NCAA.
You mentioned the talent at USC. You have 2 McDonald's All-Americans coming in on your roster. What's your scouting report on the team you have?
I'm really excited about it. I think, it's not often you get to walk into a group that wants to be really good. That maybe there'll be some guidance of how we get there, and us working together, say, okay, what is it going to take? Because it's probably going to take more than what we've done if we haven't gotten there yet. But yeah, Rhea and Clarice are two unbelievable incoming freshmen. I remember them they're young enough that I saw them on the circuit before I took my hiatus. So Rhea is incredibly dynamic, this modern sort of basketball player that's kind of positionless. She's 6'4" and can handle the ball and can play on the perimeter. She can post up, and Clarice is just a powerhouse inside. But there are other players on the team. I think Alyssa Pilley is a just incredible talent. But then there's a lot of different pieces, and we have to figure out the best way to get people to do things that impact winning. But I'm excited about the group that we have, and I think they're excited to do better than they've done before. We want to be in the NCAA tournament. We want to win games. We want to perform, not only in conference, but in the postseason. So I think it's a group that I'm excited to get there and actually roll up our sleeves and get to work, because everything else on paper is just on paper. We got to get there, and we got to get it done.
All right. I know we've taken a lot of your time. We appreciate it. Lindsay Gottlieb, new USC women's head basketball coach. Before we let you go, any message to USC fans out there? Maybe maybe there are a lot of football fans that haven't watched women's basketball. Any message to the fans?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I am really excited to be part of the Trojan family in all the sports. Like, I love football. I'm all about football. I think, in fact, a great football fan base helps women's basketball. But we want to make connections with everybody. So if you've never come to a game, come. Or come, when we open a practice, come to a practice, see how we do things. I think if you come see these women work, it's hard not to want to come back. And I think that for us to be the top program that we want to be, we want to engage with our fans and with the community. So we'll probably be out at the football games, take the time to say hello and meet us. And then I'm hoping that we can really grow this thing where it's not just about us, it's about the entire USC community, and get everyone excited about women's basketball.
Well, Coach Gottlieb, thanks again so much. I know, go talk to your recruits there. Sorry, we kept you. Thanks so much for coming on.
I appreciate you both, and hope to meet you soon.
All right, take care. Thanks, and thanks everyone for tuning in to our special edition of Tunnel Vision. Coach Lindsay Gottlieb for USC Women's Basketball.